Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the final countdown. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Are you ready? It's showtime.
Friction allows this person to climb these borders, and friction also allows you to strike a match. It is the force that opposes motion between any surfaces that are in contact. There are at least 4 types of friction, which are static, sliding, rolling, and fluid friction. Static, sliding, and rolling occur between solid surfaces, while fluid friction occurs in liquid and gases. Static friction occurs when an object is resting on a surface. The static between the snow and the boots allow this person to stand and shovel the snow. When you rub your hands together, you experience sliding friction. And when you ride a bike, you depend on rolling friction of the tires. And skydiving depends on fluid friction between the air and hopefully the parachute opening to slowing the person down. The friction used in everyday life. How do things move in real life? If a ball moves on a one flat ground and an external force acting on it, will the ball eventually stop? The answer is yes. Skating on ice rink will move more smooth than skating on the road. When holding a bottle of water in your hands, why does it not just slide and fall? Sometimes, when you are walking around the mall, you can see a caution sign to warn you about the floor being wet. The explanation to this phenomena is friction. The world without friction would be unbelievable. What if there was no friction for 1 minute? The reason why friction is so important is because it affects everything that's in motion. For example, a vehicle. In fact, car tires are designed to optimize the safety to make sure you can turn and stop without sliding. In a dry condition, having a tires that's smooth will give you better handling, while in a wet condition, having tread on your tires can improve friction because even there is light water on the road, it can cause you to lose control. Forget fireworks. Without friction, matches cannot light up. You can't use lighters. In fact, you cannot pick anything up because the ability to grip and pick things up is due to friction. If friction disappears when you are walking, your legs will still moving, but you will not go anywhere. In just 1 minute of losing friction, the whole world would just become one big formless pictureless flop.
Type of frictional force. The first is static frictions. What is the static frictions? Static frictions occurs when an object is resting on a surface. The force of friction is called static frictions when the internal force is equal to the frictional force. It means zero frictions and is not give an impact to the object. Static friction also prevents the object from moving against the surface. Let's see how static friction exists in our real life. In this situation, the static frictions between the boots and the snow allow this person to stand and shovel the snow. Look at these kettlebells. It remains stationary as the man is doing push-up due to frictions. Next is the bell. When you ring it, the bell still stays in place due to frictions. And finally, these cars can be parked on the hills and still can remain on the road without moving. It is because the static frictions. The next friction force is kinetic frictions. What is the kinetic frictions? Kinetic frictions is the friction involved between two sliding objects when they are in relative motions. Kinetic happens when object is moving. There is a frictional force, but the object is still in a state of motion. This is what we call kinetic frictions. Kinetic friction in our real life. The sport of curling is perfect to show how kinetic friction works. When you cross a mouthpad, it also involves the kinetic frictions. The last example is when you snowboarding. It is the concept of kinetic friction so that you can sliding through on the snow. When you rub your hand, it is also called kinetic friction. We have one formula for kinetic friction, which is mu multiplied by r, where mu is the coefficient of frictions and r is the normal force.
Here is the cube that placed on the table. Note that we are pushing the cube in this direction. The frictional force were acting the opposite direction. If we applied the force to the left, the frictional force were acting to the right direction and vice versa. Note that the force of friction will always oppose to the applied force. What is the factors that affecting the friction? Let me show the situation. For the first situation, when the smooth object is moving at the very smooth surface. Secondly, in which smooth object is moving on the rough surface, or when the rough object is moving on the smooth surface. For the third situation is rough object is moving on the rough surface, which is the situation that produce the highest friction. Of course, the third situation will produce highest friction, and for the lowest friction, the first situation is lowest friction.
The frictional force not only occur on horizontal surface, but inclined surface also have their own frictional force. Frictional force are created to ensure that we can walk easily without slipping and hold an object without falling. Imagine If this frictional force was absent, could we walk straightly without falling? Can we hold something easily? Of course not. Remember, something exists for a reason. Just like a horizontal surface, the frictional force on an inclined surface will also act in the opposite direction to the direction of the applied forces. The resultant force is always perpendicular to the direction of applied force and the direction of the frictional force, while weight will be always perpendicular to the ground. In this situation, the man experienced negative acceleration as he descended the stair. In conclusion, every movement we make will all involve forces, and one of them is frictional force.
Everything will not happen without logic that can be analyzed. Everything from the bounce of a ball thrown against a wall to the movement of planets across the void of nature has their own force, and one of them is frictional force. Just imagine how hard our life will be if this force did not exist. We can't even walk properly like we did right now.
Indeed, the nature beauty of God's creation is sublime and wise beyond all His creations. Grateful for allowing human beings to experience the beauty of having knowledge to understand this mechanic, such as friction, that has helped many human beings to conduct their daily life. Imagine if this frictional force was absent. Could we walk straightly without falling? Can we hold something easily? Of course not. Remember, something exists for a reason.
Thank you for lending your ears, and don't forget to like our video. And that's all from us. Thank you.